Hi, and welcome to another episode of Beroe Talks, a series of videos where we interact with industry experts and leaders in the supply chain and procurement space and discuss key issues in the market today. I'm Raghav from the packaging team at Beroe, and this video is about vendor performance metrics for paper-based packaging. If second half of every year is usually busy for paper-based packaging companies to review and renew their supplier contracts, the period leading up to that is equally important because some of the most strategic decisions have to be taken by this time. As this is a very important step, not to forget that this is a time-consuming one too, firms need to be absolutely sure that they deal with the best-in-class suppliers and also have the right metrics in place for performance management. To talk more about this, we have Dr. Randy Phares with us today, also called as Dr. Box in this industry. He's from Phoenix, Arizona, and is one of the very few consultants in the packaging industry who's also a member of the TAPI Consulting Council. He's also the president and CEO of Dr. Box Consulting and has more than 25 years of rich experience in this industry. Dr. Randy, thanks for joining us today. It's a privilege to have you with us on the show today.
Well, thank you very much for having me. To start off, basically, we need to go through what some of the basics are of a vendor management system. So essentially, what you'll need to do is you need to determine exactly what products that you want to have voted by a particular vendor, what criteria you have not only for the vendor, whether it be a national or international supplier, or other criteria. You also need to determine the specifications of the materials or the products that you're going to receive from them, as well as what your requirements are going to be from a service standpoint. And on any quality issues, it always helps if you can create some type of a visual standard that has like a go and a no-go. That way people know at your potential supplier exactly what good product looks like and what bad product looks like. A lot of the Fortune 500 corporations will take all of this information and they'll put it into a survey in order to help qualify potential suppliers. That way they can sort through and figure out if a particular supplier has all of the necessary requirements to meet their needs. Now, if you already have a current set of suppliers that you're very happy with and you're very happy with your current pricing, then you really don't need to go into that level of detail. A lot of the Fortune 500 companies do that anyway, but it really is a waste of time and money in order to do that if you're already going to grandfather those particular suppliers in. Now, for metrics are going to be different depending on what your requirements are. But typical metrics on, let's say, corrugated packaging would be the dimension specifications or the print specifications and various different quality defects that could possibly become a problem. The level of detail required on that is really going to be determined by the product and by you as the customer, because the customer sets what is required by its vendors.
Correct.
Now, one thing that I really want to warn you about is you want to keep it simple. And the Fortune 500 corporations in general have a tendency to not do that.
Right.
What they do is they go for convolution instead of simple. Because a lot of purchasing managers and supply chain managers feel that if they look smart by creating a really elaborate list of questions and spreadsheets that are required, that it makes them look good to their bosses. But the reality is, all it does is make the process much more cumbersome and you get a much lower quality of result. I can give an example from a case study from when I was running for one of the divisions of, they switched to their corporate procurement and doing everything centrally. So basically they sent out an 82-page questionnaire
Uh-huh.
that also required 42 spreadsheets.
Okay.
So by the time I was done filling out all of the information, and this was an existing account that we were already the top supplier in, and we're having no quality or delivery issues, that we basically submitted 128 pages worth of information plus 41 spreadsheets. And if you do that with a bunch of different vendors, it becomes impossible for any one person to be able to sort through all of that information over multiple vendors in order to really make an appropriate evaluation. You really need to narrow down your focus to what is truly important to you and not just throw it out there to think that you should ask as many questions as possible. The reality is you need to figure out what are the true important factors and focus on those, because that is what's going to determine what's the best supplier for you, not all of the other information that you could possibly ask that's really irrelevant.
Right. So just to summarize, Randy, we're talking about the importance of supplier performance management because currently only 40% of the companies globally have a proper metrics in place to measure their supplier performance. So to just summarize what we just discussed, it all depends again on the priorities that each and every firm has. So if you're currently happy with your suppliers, then it need not be a cumbersome process, but to make it really simple would mean a lot to the packaging firms especially.
Yes.
Right. So
now,
Randy, just to ask you more details on this. So how exactly does a firm measure supplier performance?
Okay, first you would need to determine what you want to measure. And again, you want to try to keep it basic and simple to what are the most important things for your particular organization. So some things that I think would be important for most firms to make sure that you measure is quality. Now, quality can come in a lot of different forms. It can be the quality of the manufacture of the product. It can be the way that it's delivered. It can be how the service is properly handled. If you want your semi-trailers kitted in order of your production run lines, so they go straight from the dock straight to your manufacturing and things like that. If they are not done in the proper order, that would also be a quality issue. You need to determine basically what types of quality issues cause you issues that can cost you money or safety concern. So if it's going to cause you downtime on your line, if they're violating specifications that are important to your customer or for your internal operations, those type of things are the things that you really need to focus on as far as quality. Now, another thing that is often overlooked in vendor management systems is the price.
Right.
Now, sometimes you can get better service at a higher price. Sometimes you can get the same service at a lower price. Most of the time, better service requires a higher price. So essentially, you want to measure the quality and you want to measure the price, because if you have multiple vendors, there is a chance that they're not all offering you the exact same price.
Right.
Now, some companies require that they meet the exact price, but the reality is, in most situations, there may be slightly different pricing on different vendors for different items. So that should be rated and included in your vendor management system.
Right.
Now, for most companies, holding inventory is a problem. You don't want to hold any more inventory of raw materials than you possibly have to. So with that being the case, you need to be able to count on your suppliers to be able to deliver the product that you need when you specifically ask for it to be delivered. So you need to have an on-time delivery standard, and if they miss it by half an hour, if they miss it by an hour, if they miss it by a half a day, if they miss it by a day, there need to be specific penalties and also a grading criteria that affects how you evaluate that vendor.
Correct. And
now, service.
Randy, since we're talking about corrugated boxes, I think that was one brilliant point that we need to consider, because storing your corrugated boxes is not that easy, and the warehousing cost and the other quality related costs that I incur as a buyer is huge in this industry.
Yes, corrugated especially because it is full of air, basically, because it's fluted. It takes up a lot of space.
Correct.
Which is the reason that there's so many corrugated box plants and fewer folding carton plants and other things and label manufacturing plants, because they stack very dense and the shipping costs and freight costs are much less. But for corrugated, storing the material and shipping the material becomes a very significant cost.
Right. And talking about the price part of it, there was one interesting read that I just came across. So, it said to be a win-win situation for both you and the supplier, you should never squeeze your supplier beyond a particular limit, because once you squeeze his or her profits, in turn, you're going to be affected the most, and not the supplier.
No, that is for sure, because at a certain level, they end up having to cut corners, having to reduce their sophistication of their quality systems and things like that in order to meet your price. And it definitely can affect their ability to deliver on time and affect their quality and their service as well, because all of those come at a cost to your supplier. And if you're requiring a specific high level of service, then you are doing that because it reduces your costs.
Right.
So if you have them kit, or if you have them work on a Kanban system for you, or you have them do other service situations that may not always be common in their particular industry, then they're going to have to put additional staff on in order to accommodate some of those. So you need to keep that in mind. You want your best overall cost to your customer. So your cost of the box may be slightly higher, but you're going to reduce your internal costs by the improvement of the service that you're receiving.
Correct. Exactly. So, Randy, just a quick thought on the inventories as well. So, what, according to you, is the best method to manage inventories in this particular industry? We spoke about just-in-time, we spoke about Kanban. So, what, according to you, would be the best measure in this industry?
It depends on what you actually need. In my personal opinion, I believe the use of a Kanban system is the best, but it is not as often used. If you have, because most of the manufacturers, unlike a corrugated manufacturer, you have a finite number of products you make.
Right.
Whether it be 10 products or 300 products, it's usually not thousands of products. So if you have a finite number of products that you're managing, 200 or less especially, then it makes sense in order to set up a Kanban system based on how fast your vendor can turn your product, and also make sure that you have, the calculated safety stock that you would need under a Kanban system on your end, and that they would do the same on their end to make sure that they can keep your supply. That way, you can pull directly from your immediate inventory, take it to the line, and when you pull a unit of product, you just put the Kanban card at the shipping office, and when your supplier makes their delivery, their driver can take that back, and they know what to deliver the next day. So that, if you have a supplier that's willing to do it, that is a big advantage. If you have advance notice of exactly how your production lines are going to run, of what products you're actually going to run on a given day ahead of time, and they do not change, and you can take that to the next step, and you can send a getting list to your vendor exactly how you want the truck loaded, so you can come straight off the truck and onto your line. Most corrugated companies do not do this, but as long as you're willing to pay for the cost, a lot of them will be flexible in order to do that, which will improve your efficiencies at your operation itself.
Right. So, Randy, again, we spoke about a lot of parameters, right, from, say, service to delivery to inventories, warehousing, etc. So, I'm sure the weighted average is the best method in case I'm coming up with the metrics to measure my supplier performance. So, would you second that, or would you, follow some other method in this particular industry?
When I set up a vendor management system, that's exactly what I do. I basically will generally weight price higher than I will some of the others because it is a significant factor in the cost of your materials, but that will vary based on what percentage of your sell price is actually represented by packaging. Mm-hmm. If you have a high-end item and the packaging is a very low percentage of your cost, then the packaging price is going to be less important than if the packaging price selling bottled water, the packaging cost is going to be much higher than if you're selling, let's say, LED television sets or cellular telephones or something like that. Mm-hmm. So basically, you need to figure the importance of each of these sections. So you have the subsections, and each one of those will be divided and calculated to a percentage of quality, price, on-time delivery, service, and you'll weight those differently, each category based on your priority. And the way I do it is I would have all of that result in a single individual number to represent the vendor's performance. The next question would be, how would you use these metrics in order to improve your vendor's performance and your company performance?
Right.
So you need to create a reward system. Mm-hmm. And basically, what I generally did was you can offer additional business or a percentage of business, special terms, or special awards to like vendor of the year, vendor of the month, those type of things, which all can help. But what I always like to do is reward with volume of purchases. So basically, the vendor that performed the highest this month was guaranteed, let's say if I had 3 vendors, I would guarantee the top performer 40% of my business. Mm-hmm. Then I would offer the next best performer 30% of my business, and then I would offer the other one 15% of my business, and I would leave a little unassigned portion that I could give to whichever vendor I wanted based on a lot of other things that may not be in the particular vendor management system. For example, I used to have my buyer try to negotiate discounts and put one supplier against the other in some circumstances when I had a special thing that we needed to do that was high volume, and say, hey, if you want this chunk of business, then you're going to have to come in very competitive, and I still expect you to meet the same quality standards that we've been getting from you. And in those cases, it gives some flexibility for you to still maneuver within your system to incentivize any particular vendor to help you in any particular area that would help your organization.
Right.
The other thing...
would that hold good for penalties as well? So since we are talking about rewards and, I thought talking about penalties would also be sensible here.
What was that again?
The penalties in case we do not find the performance from a supplier up to the expectations that we had?
Yes, and I implemented that at several different companies. Uh-huh. One in particular was a company that I had worked for that was called Marfred Industries in Southern California. Okay. And basically, if they were late on a delivery, they got penalized a certain amount. If it was palletized incorrectly, they would have to pay a certain amount. If there were any quality issues, they would have to pay penalties in addition to all of my costs in order to resolve their issue. And it ended up being a significant amount of money in the first couple of months. And all of my vendors were very upset about this. Right. So they would come into my office all upset that I charged them so much money for their penalties, and they didn't think that it was fair. And so I would say, so you agreed that all of this criteria was reasonable and that you could meet those criteria, correct? Yes. Well, if you felt that for the price that I'm paying you, that you could meet all of these and you didn't meet these and it cost me money and you knew that these penalties were already in place, then are you telling me that you should not have to give me quality? Should you not have to deliver my product on time?
Right.
And they couldn't say, yes, we don't. So I said, you should be happy. You should look at this as if you're paying me as a consultant to help you improve your business, because your business is failing in quality and on-time delivery and things, and you're not meeting our expectations. So you need to take this. If you actually provide product and services in the manner that you agreed to in our contract, you will have no fine. So the reality is, any fines that you have received are your own doing, and you need to resolve your internal problems so you're not causing us problems and you won't have any fine.
Right.
And they really couldn't argue with that. So they did get better, and so I got better vendors, and so my plant performed better, and they reduced their penalties, and it was a win-win for everybody.
Right. So just sum that up. We spoke about quality, we spoke about delivery, we spoke about the inventory systems, and always the weighted average is the best way that I would look at when I rank my suppliers. So I would have like 20, 30 parameters. Again, depends on one company to the other, but always a weighted average on what my priorities are really matters to a company. So that sums it up beautifully, Randy. So thanks for your time today over the call. That was, I think, a very informative one on the supplier performance. Thanks for your time today.
Thank you very much. You guys have a great day.
Thanks, Randy. You too. For any clarifications or further details on this topic, please feel free to write to us at this email ID. Adios.